Today I'm going to be filming a tutorial for the Hartford Sling. This is the brand new pattern from Hills Handmade. This sling has a unique shape and the pockets are constructed a little differently. We have some hidden connectors and a gusset all the way around. We'll be doing binding on this bag. While I have not sewn this specific pattern before, I've read over the pattern, I've sewn many of her patterns before, and I feel like this pattern is going to come together in a quick and easy way, except for me with those hidden connectors. I always get so nervous when I do a hidden connector, so I'll go slow on those steps. They always turn out great. I just always have such anxiety with installing them. So since I am using hidden connectors, I am using some vinyl in this bag. I don't sew with vinyl a lot just because I prefer using woven materials, but whenever you have hidden connectors, you really have to use a raw edge material just for the integrity and to make sure you don't have any problems later. Definitely cut out your main pieces with a non-fraying material. I'm also choosing to cut out the connectors with a raw edge material, although you don't have to with these. Your pattern piece D also has to be a non-fraying material. So that is the options that I'm using vinyl for. Everything else will be the woven, and all of my woven is going to be from Jen's Fabrics. I will go through the pattern pieces as we're sewing things up, so I will let you know those as we go, but the shapes are pretty distinct on this, so I don't think you'll have too much trouble knowing which pattern piece is which. So let's go ahead and get started sewing up this pattern. To get this pattern started, I'm going to be working on the D-ring connectors. If you look at the back of the D-ring connector, you can see I drew a line down the middle, and then I folded both long edges to that middle. I'm going to top stitch down both sides, just about 1/8 of an inch away. After you get both of these D-ring connectors top stitched, we're going to go ahead and set these aside. We will use these later when we're installing the hidden connectors. My next step is going to be to create that front slip pocket. You're going to pull out pattern piece B and C. Pattern piece B, for my exterior, I'm using a panel. Just as a note on that pattern piece, it tells you that you'll also cut 2 lining pieces from that pattern piece as well. Just make sure one of them is mirrored. For pattern piece C, you'll only cut out 1 piece, which is this one. My materials for these pieces are a cotton woven, and all I have on the back of them is a layer of SF101. To sew up this pocket, the way we do it is we take these pieces and we just put them right sides together. They should match up pretty perfectly along the top, which is what we'll be sewing. You will see that gap down the bottom. No need to worry about that at this moment. So we're just going to sew from one edge all the way up to the other, making sure you do a really nice pivot there and you don't lose your seam allowance. What we want to do now is we want to make a snip right here in this corner where that pivot is. We want to make a cut there within the seam allowance, just so it can help the fabrics whenever we turn them wrong sides together and top stitch, that we have a smooth, like there's not a bump there with that extra bulk. You can take this over the iron and press the seam flat. I'm just going to finger press. Take the time to roll the seams before you top stitch this, just so that it lays nicely. Once you get this clip together, go ahead and top stitch from one side all the way up to the other. With my top stitching, it's just going to be 1/8 of an inch away. The next thing we need to do is we need to add this piece to the exterior. So go ahead and pull out one of those exterior pieces. You want both of them to have the taller portion going to the right. If yours is not, recheck everything to make sure it's accurate. So what I want to do is I want to clip this into place first. I want to match up the sides and the bottom. Of course, we're going to have all that extra room at the top. The pattern piece for this front pocket gives us a series of rivet placements. What you will do if you want to use rivets is you will use your hole puncher or your rivet press to make the holes through both the front pocket and this exterior piece. I have a rivet press, I have rivets, I just don't want to use them. She does give a different option in the pattern, and that is to sew lines down, and I think I want that one better. I think I just like the way that's going to look. I don't know, but you can use rivets or you can sew. The main thing to remember is that if you're going to sew, you're still going to use that rivet placement line as to how far over it's going to be. I use the pattern piece to mark where I'm going to start and stop sewing on this piece, but after I do this first initial row of stitches, I'm just going to continue doing them just for a decorative look. You don't have to do that. You can just do one and done, but I think I want to do the others just to make it look kind of a feature on this pocket. So I will start at the top stitching. I will lock in my stitches. You could pull them to the back if you wanted to, and just go all the way down to the bottom. So this is how my front pocket looks. The initial row of stitching down here is the only one that's necessary, or it could be replaced with rivets, and then this other side is still completely open. Now that I have this front pocket done, I'm going to go ahead and pull out my lining piece. For me, what I did was I went ahead and attached the fleece to the lining piece. You could use foam, Decaville, whatever you want. I decided to do it this way since I'll have those hidden connectors on the back. I just felt like this would be an easier way. I could go ahead and add the fleece here. I wouldn't have to worry about interfacing or adding fleece, foam, Decaville, anything to the back, since I know I'll be having to do some manipulation on it. Also, since I'm using vinyl, it's just easier to heat press my woven. Even though I can heat press vinyl and have many times, this is just an easier way for me to do it. So the fleece is on there. I do have mine in the seam allowance. I'm not too concerned. I feel like I can handle the bulk on that, but you could definitely keep it out if you're a little concerned on it. What I'm doing is I'm placing these wrong sides together. I'm just going to flip over to the exterior clip all the way around, and then I'm just going to baste this entire piece in place. When you have a bound bag, it's so easy to do these steps and just get them kind of taken care of all at once. And so this will be a basting stitch about 1/8 of an inch away. Everything should line up pretty decently. After we have this basting stitch done, our front is complete and it's ready to be added to the gusset whenever we get to that step. I have this front completed. I'm going to trim up all my overhang, and then I'm just going to set this aside until we're ready to attach it to the gusset. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a simple slip pocket for the inside of the bag. So I have the two lining pieces. They are cut mirrored, and I'm just going to place them right sides together and simply sew along that top edge like I did on the front piece. Of course, slip pockets inside are optional. You don't have to do that. I always like to have at least one slip pocket in most of my bags just for convenience inside, but I rarely like, for personal use, to use a zipper pocket inside a bag. After you have that sewn together, go ahead and make that same snip in the crease within the seam allowance. Pull these two apart. Just do a quick finger press to open that seam up. Flip these wrong sides together, roll those seams out, and then we'll top stitch. Once you have that slip pocket ready, go ahead and pull out the back lining piece, fleece attached. Place your slip pocket on there, matching up the sides and the bottom. The lining piece is right sides up, your slip pocket is right sides up, and then you're just going to baste around the sides and the bottom. My back piece is done. I'm going to set this aside until we have the back exterior ready, and then we'll attach those together. The next thing I'm going to work on is the gusset. If you can't tell by now, I am seriously dreading having those hidden connectors installed, so I'm going to take care of everything else first and do that last. If you're someone who wants to just kind of jump in and get the hardest part over with first, or the part that you might be nervous about most first, do the hidden connector first. So to make this gusset, we have a zipper. I'm using a number 5 zipper from So Majestic, and we have 4 zipper panel pieces, 2 exterior, 2 lining. On my exterior, I do have a layer of Decaville light on these. I didn't want fleece, but I did want to give it a little bit something extra for stability. We have 2 base pieces, a lining and exterior. Again, on the lining piece, I do have Decaville light added to it. We will start constructing the gusset by having the 2 zipper pieces, 1 exterior and 1 lining. My lining piece is what I will attach the zipper to first. I have the zipper right sides up, that lining gusset piece right sides up, and then I just basted the zipper all along the top edge with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I do not have the zipper pulls on yet. This is just for ease of sewing. I leave my zipper tape long so that I can add the pulls on easily and trim it up at the end. Now that I have the zipper basted onto the lining, I'm going to come in with the exterior and place it right sides together, matching up not only that long edge but also the short edge. The basting step is an unnecessary step. You could definitely sew this all at once together. It's just the way I prefer to do it. So now this time I'm using the full seam allowance to attach these 3 pieces together. You're going to pull these 2 gusset pieces together, and I'm going to baste all the way down this raw edge to kind of attach these 2, and then I will come back and top stitch against this folded edge. Both of those stitches will be done about 1/8 of an inch away. This is how the first side of that gusset looks, so I'm going to go ahead and repeat those same steps to attach the zipper panels to this other side so that we can have both of these finished. I'm also going to add the zipper pulls and trim up the zipper tape off camera. I have both of the zipper panels attached. I have the pulls on and the ends trimmed, so everything is ready to go to finish up this gusset. We're going to pull out those 2 base pieces and attach them. My exterior piece is the one that has the Decaville light added to it, so I'm going to place it right sides together with the exterior. Flip it over, take that lining piece and place it right sides together, and we're just matching up this short edge. Once you have everything attached, just go ahead and sew with the seam allowance given the pattern, and that will be attaching all 3 of these pieces. After you have those sewn together, pull apart those base pieces, and then you're going to go ahead and top stitch 1/8 of an inch away, and you're top stitching on the base side, not on the zipper gusset side. After you have that top stitch, what you're going to do is you're going to take these free edges and attach to the other side of the zipper gusset. So first we just put exteriors to exteriors. I'm going to go ahead and add a clip there. Then you'll take that lining piece and you will flip it to where it can be attached lining to lining, right sides together, the lining pieces. We're going to sew these pieces together the same way we did with that full seam allowance. Once again, we are going to pull these apart. But this time what we'll do is we'll start basting down here at the edge that we already top stitched. Go all along that long edge and then top stitch across the short edge and then baste all the way down again. And that will just get this all one complete piece so that way we can attach it easier when we're attaching it to the main panels. When you're sewing these long edges and basting them, that you're checking to make sure that they are staying in line with each other. They'll have a tendency to kind of slip around. If you have any overhang on your base piece, go ahead and trim that up. After you trim it up, then go ahead and find your quarter marks on this gusset piece, and also pull out this front panel piece and find your quarter marks here. Off camera, I'm going to go ahead and clip my gusset on, matching up those quarter marks right sides together, but I'll come back and show you how that looks. Still have not made that back yet. That will be probably one of the last things I do. I will sew this gusset on the front before I do those hidden connectors on the back. I have my gusset clipped right sides together with the front exterior. A couple of things I want to mention is I did find quarter marks. The way I did that was with this main panel piece. I took the paper pattern piece and folded it into fourths and then just transferred those marks to the main panel. With the gusset, I just found the quarter marks the typical way. We are going to sew this gusset on and add binding. The way I'm going to do this is I'm going to do a basting stitch first. That's just going to be 1/8 of an inch. I want to be really careful because we have a lot of curves, some unique shapes going on here, so I don't want to mess anything up. I'm going to sew this very slow, and I'm going to use my hemostats to kind of make sure I'm pulling and getting these edge pieces connected as much as possible. Hillary does tell us that if we need to, we can make tiny snips to kind of help it spread. I don't like to do snips if I can avoid it. I like to really just kind of pull and tug to get that shape that I want. From the past patterns that Hillary has made, she has taught me the technique that she likes to have kind of a pinch on these corners when she sews them, kind of flare it out. And so when we sew it, we do a sharp pivot. We don't do a rounding. She really likes 90-degree angles in her patterns, and this technique has helped me a lot with the pinching part. So I'm going to be doing that as well in this pattern, just like her other ones. I'm going to be sewing this very slow, but I'll speed it up on the camera just so you guys aren't bored, but just take this step slow. I checked these side seams here, and I want them pretty even. Mine are not perfectly even. This one is slightly above this one. So because of that, I'm going to start sewing here and go around this way by hoping that a slight bit of stretch or any excess fabric will kind of shift this down a little. If this one was a little bit higher, I would do the opposite and I'd start sewing here and go around that way. Just a way to kind of hopefully get that excess out of the way in an easy kind of manner without unclipping and reclipping. I did try to reclip it several times, try to get the best match, and I just didn't have any luck. It just kept always being this one a little bit higher, so it's okay. Coming up to my first little curve area, I'm going to go all the way to the end of that and then lift my foot and actually pivot instead of just rounding it. This is going to help me get a little bit of a sharper turn at each of these pivot spots. I'll do that same thing at all of them. Here is my next one. I'm pinching the extra fabric, going up as close as I can, lifting and pivoting. I definitely had some extra, so by doing that technique, this one's definitely down lower and more in line almost perfectly with the other side. So try that same thing if you're having problems as well. We're onto one of these main corners at the bottom. You can see I have it pinched here. I'm going to use my hemostats to kind of pull it flush, go all the way down to that edge. Then lift the needle, lift my foot up, and do a complete pivot there. I'll do this same thing whenever I'm doing that full seam allowance with the binding on. So now this gusset is like just the basting stitch done. I have great curves and corners. My corners look great. Everything fit really well. No problems all getting it to fit. Just a little bit of tugging I needed to do, but I don't think you need to snip personally. When I come in with the binding, I am unsure if I'm going to do an actual bind or just a fold over. I'm not for sure yet. I'll look and see what I have. But I'm going to have to do that same technique where I really try to pivot and get these corners to look really nice. I won't skip those steps. I won't just kind of phone it in. I'll try to be really slow with it. I'm going to do those steps off camera just to save you time, but it's the same thing of sewing around and pivoting at the corners really well. This type of gusset will take just a little bit longer to do than a rounded gusset if you want it to look nice. So take the time, put in the effort, and we will do that with the binding, and then the same thing with the back. But before we get to the back, I have to finish it up. So let's go ahead and pull that out. Here is my back piece, a D-ring, and my connector. I've done plenty of these. I never have problems with it looking great every time. It's just stressful for me. So the first thing you do is you need to transfer your markings to the back and cut those slits. Now those slits should be about a 1-inch slit, and your connector should be 1 inch, and of course your D-ring should be 1 inch, so they all fit together. I do this from the back side, so this is the wrong side of my exterior. I'm looking at the right side of my connector. I'm just going to slip in this connector. I'm going to go in, I don't know, maybe 3/4 to 1 inch, something like that. And then what I want to do is I want to just sew across this edge here. This edge should be raw, and you're attaching this part of the exterior back to your connector. I'm just going to sew about 1/8 of an inch away from that raw edge. So you're really sewing as close as you can, but with vinyl you don't want to get too close to the edge and risk of it perforating. So I'm going to give myself about 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to back stitch here. Now let's go ahead and flip this over. So what you can see here is we have the wrong side that we're looking at our connector. We also have these stitches that are on the connector. We will not be able to see those stitches once we have this finished. We also have that opening there at the bottom. Slide your D-ring on, and then just start slipping that connector part through. So once you have that pulled down, and it doesn't really matter, you get to choose how much you want to pull it down, but my bottom usually is a little bit longer than my top. Once you get it pushed in, look over to your front. Now you can see that I have my raw edge sewing. That is really going to bother me. You could leave it like that. That's easy done, just top stitch there. But I'm going to try my best to have that tucked in so that I top stitch and it's a finished edge. This is unnecessary. It doesn't really help any with the integrity of this connector. It's just a personal preference. You could glue this or tape it. I'm just going to hold it. And so I can kind of make for sure that my edge is straight. You can see how there's no puckering there, but just right here, this is a folded edge, and it's going to be tricky. I'm not suggesting you do it. I'm just saying it's what I'm going to do. So now that I have that tucked in, I ensure that there's no puckering, everything is laying flat. I'm going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away across from that edge that I just folded under. I wish I would have had this tucked in a little bit more. Make sure you pull yours in a little bit further. I would have preferred that. It's okay. It's not the end. Everything's fine, but that's why these are so tricky to me. I always feel like I could have done better. So I feel like I could have had that pulled in maybe almost 1/2 of an inch more. It'll be fine in the end. I still have plenty of room there, but you can see what I'm talking about, how it's a little bit bigger. So that is how you do the first one. I'm going to repeat those same steps on this bottom one here, trying to get it a little bit further tucked in. And then after I do that, I will go ahead and baste it just like we did. If you want to put your rivets in, don't forget to do those first. And then I will baste it to the lining piece, just like we did the front, sewing all around. And then we will attach it to this, and that will be it. It will be completely done. I haven't made a strap yet. I haven't decided. I'm going to look and see if I have any webbing that'll look cool with this. If not, I might just make a strap out of the material. But I will come back and show you what it looks like before I turn it. I'll show you how the binding looks and the binding I used, and we'll talk about that, and then we'll turn it out together. So I have the bag completely sewn together and bound. Look at that shape. This is such a cool shape. So now it's time for me to turn it right sides out and see how everything looks. First things first, look at how big this opens. This is great for those of us that have trouble turning bags right side out, and also this means that we're going to have a very easy time finding the things we need in here. I have my bag completely turned out, but I also have clips on it. This bag has a really great shape, but I think I could have done better with my interfacing because I have a little bit of collapsing on my gusset. I always tend to under interface, and I think this time it kind of shows in the bag, so definitely make sure you follow the pattern for the interfacing on that. Let's go ahead and take these clips off to see how the shape is doing. I may need to put them back on, but right now everything's looking gorgeous. Look at this shape. This is such a cool bag. The corners look really good. I love how she has this shape. I'm not seeing a pattern like this. I feel like I could have used a little bit stronger of interfacing in my gusset to kind of prevent that denting. All I had was some Decaville Light. Might would add fleece with Decaville Light to help next time. But other than that, everything is gorgeous. When you open this up, you have a really wide opening, which is so good to be able to get in there and find things. Look at that. That is perfect. I love it so much. Now we only have one piece left and one thing left to do, and that is to create the strap. I think I'm going to go ahead and use a 1.5 inch webbing, and that way I can use this strap connector, and I think it'll look really good. So I'm going to do this basically the same way I always do, with adding a adjustable bar, 2 swivel hooks to attach to the back of this sling. I will use this as a connector on the top part. So let me go ahead and get that hardware, put this all together, and show you what that strap's going to look like. I have this strap all put together, but I have not sewn it yet. I'll probably just sew this off camera, but I did just want to show you how I had it done. I have the edge folded under here with the connector, and then that connector that we have the pattern piece for, I have it on the same end as the swivel hook. That's what the pattern tells us to do. So you just slip it on and then fold it over. So I have 2 places to sew on this strap. I'll sew around this piece here, and after you sew it, you could add some rivets too. And then I'll sew back here on this one. Those will be the 2 places I sew on the strap. Just not going to show that. I've shown straps being made many times, but I did want to talk about it. Other than that, my Hartford sling is completely done. This pattern is from Hills Handmade, and I think it's an adorable pattern. I know she's going to have the instructions for a clear vinyl version included in the pattern, so that's another benefit of the pattern. But honestly, I really love this. This is a skill builder pattern. It's very beginner friendly, but you're working on curves and corners. You're doing hidden connectors. You are just really getting a lot of knowledge in this pattern, and you're practicing a lot of skills. Super amazing pattern. Love it so much. Big fan. My fabric, including this panel and the print, is all from Jen's Fabrics. The print's a little unique and a little kind of quirky, and this pattern is perfect for it. So beautiful. Love it so much. So thank you so much for watching another tutorial of mine, and I hope today in your sewing room you're able to sew something that just kind of makes you focus on your skills, build some new ones, and it's just fun, and when you look at it, you're just proud of the job you did. Thanks so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.